Hi, my name's Pokey LaFarge, and you're listening to Retrospectives with John Broughton on KC Radio 97.7 FM.
Oh, the devil ain't lazy. No, siree. The devil ain't lazy. No, siree.
Interviews and articles about you, and often a comment that often comes up is a suggestion that you were someone that was perhaps born too late, that you belong to another time. Do you feel that way yourself sometimes?
No, not at all. I'm quite comfortable with my life in the present day. I think that comment, if I may speak frankly, may be a little narrow-minded.
Yeah.
I think if you looked at people looked at it more, more below the surface, as I feel looking below the surface is important in a lot of things. It would come to the decision with a little bit of research that I think that a little bit of the past along with the present is what makes the future, and that's basically what I'm working with as well.
That's a beautiful way of putting it. Was there a parental influence that got you into the styles of music that you grew to love?
Well, I think there's perhaps a parental influence to do the opposite of what they did to a certain extent. That is not to say that I didn't have good proper, well, it was like proper, but I definitely had influential guidance from my parents, but not in the way of music. No, that was more of a couple of my peers, but grandparents definitely, and some of the older people I was hanging out with at the time. I've always hung out with people that are much older than me, it seems. But I had good parents, and I think that they were strict, but they were definitely, they gave me the reins at what I demanded them. I think that they made some mistakes, but they certainly allowed me to go down my own path and do some things that other parents perhaps would have been a little bit more strict about.
Hmm. What about the environment, the area that you grew up in? Did that contribute to the interest in the music that you eventually made?
Well, I can't really say no, because where we are born and raised has a lot to do with who we are, things we understand and other things we probably never will understand.
Mm.
These are the places where I did discover this music for the first time. I wouldn't say that it's a place that you would consider to be very ensconced in the music from the past or even in the present at that present time. But, this was before the days of internet, really, when I was getting into this stuff. So we did have libraries that I could follow up on my initial interests, and that certainly helped my research and helped further my own self-interest and self-education.
I believe you were a bit of a history buff in your younger years, or probably still are.
Very much so.
Yeah. You began on guitar, developed a love for the mandolin. What was your initial attraction to that instrument?
Well, I would like to say it was meeting an Australian by the name of Steve Gilchrist, perhaps the finest mandolin maker in the entire world, at the Bean Blossom Bluegrass Festival when I was 16 years old. However, I can't really give all the credit to an Aussie because I barely even talked to him, and he didn't have time for me. But it is true that I met him at a very young age, which is kind of interesting because I just started playing, and everyone kept saying, "Oh, it's just like the best mandolin maker in the world, and he's from Australia, and you have to get on a 10-year waiting list to get one of those instruments." I'll never forget that. But my interest in the mandolin was kind of the same reason why I think that I sought out a lot of the things that I did at a young age, and that was part of the reason. Part of it was probably because I just wanted to be different. But I, of course, had an interest in the instrument, and specifically bluegrass music, which was kind of what I discovered right after really getting into the blues. So Bill Monroe and David Grisman and Sam Bush and people like that became the guys who got me into the mandolin.
Mm. Now, I'm sure there's a story behind the nickname of Pokey, and I'm sure you've probably told it a million times before, but could, just for the benefit of our listeners here, is there a story behind that?
You know, Pokey's an old nickname from when I was a kid, and it sort of just stuck with me, and that's pretty much what everybody calls me, and you know, just I guess you could say it is effectively a stage name, but it does carry on past the stage as well.
Now, you spent a good deal of time before you began a professional career in music, busking around, hitchhiking around the States and busking. How do you rate that experience in terms of your grounding as a musician?
I think that's a good question. You know, I certainly think of nothing else that taught me to sing loud, you know, to get my voice heard, but also, you know, to perform and see what songs pique people's interest as they walk by. I think it's very instrumental, you know, pun intended. But I think there's other things socially that you learn from playing on the street as well. You know, those things can't be underestimated. I certainly met a lot of great musicians playing on the street, and a lot of interesting people, and developed a lot of, again, social skills and performance skills. I mean, at the age of 17, 18, 19, 20, you know, I was pretty extensive through those times, but also on and off until I was about 25 to 26. I haven't worked bus for about 3 or 4 years. I just haven't really had the time.
I guess it would have taught you a lot about working an audience too, because you basically don't have an audience sitting there watching you. They're passing by. It's a mobile audience, I guess, for want of a better word. Yeah.
That's right. You got to bait the case, you know, throw a couple ones in the case, let them know there's, hey, there's somebody else, some other people that may give money to this guy. You can't be that bad. And then you just start playing things, and you see how it goes. And then, of course, you know, you learn the different spots to play at and everything like that. I definitely can't be seen as an expert busker because, I mean, I definitely know what to do, but there's other people that still to this day and for a lot longer have made a living playing on the street. And there's some other places where they have an order to things, you know, when people literally just play every day on the street. Places like Seattle and places like New Orleans, you know, and there's kind of an order, a pecking order of things. People have their turf, you know.
Yeah, for sure. I've read other interviews with you where you've mentioned some of the groups that influenced you and got your interest in those styles of music. Many names that would be relatively obscure to a lot of people. Were you an active student of these music forms? Did you go out of your way to seek as many of these type of groups as you could?
Well, yeah, and I don't want to make this too long-winded, but I think to tie into the original question was one of the first questions was where I grew up, instrumental sort of in my growing musical interest. I think it was, but in a non-musical way. What I mean to say is that growing up in Melbourne, Illinois, I would even say growing up in the Midwest, you know, whether you're a foreigner who comes, a lot of times when they come over here, they go to see New York City, Florida, and California, that's it. If you grow up on the West Coast or the East Coast, you know, you don't come to the Midwest, and if you do, you drive it through it. So nobody gives a damn, and you kind of can fly, you know, about the history and about the present. And obviously, if they don't know about the history and the present, they're going to have no idea what our potential is in the future.
Yeah. And
so we kind of fly under the radar and have this underdog opinion or this underdog approach. And I've always had that. You know, I've always had that. always I think that it instilled a strong work ethic in me, and perhaps because of our ancestors, people that I think if nothing else, the Midwest is known for quite a few things, and a lot of them are positive, but one definitely being work ethic. But attributing that to the music is that I was always looking for the people underneath the surface. You know, for every Louis Armstrong, there's 100 other guys that you may know, and for every other 100 guys that you may know, there's thousands of people that you've never heard of.
Mm.
The same can be said for every Hank Williams, you know, and same thing for every, you know, Robert Johnson. You know, these guys that they almost seem to say like they're the only people that exist in quote genre. So I realized this, I think, early on, but you know, it took research and it took a lot of following, remembering names, writing things down, and really seeking them out because, of course, like the music itself, I wasn't exactly exposed to it like a lot of people these days are, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So you really do have to become a student of it if you want to find these other names. And find these other names, of course, are a joy, just like everybody these days, no matter what music they listen to. A new exposure can be a really pivotal moment in their lives. And I think even furthermore from that, the more you learn, the more music you listen to, American music as an American, you know, the more you'll understand about our music, and the more you understand about our music, the more you understand about our culture and our history in general. You learn all the kinds of things along with it, because you know, music and culture are one and the same, especially in the States, where music is such a big part of our lives, especially in the 20th century, where, you know, with all these different things that we've invented. And I think people, like a lot of the things in American culture, take it for granted these days, but I'm trying not to.
Speaking of work ethic, as you did earlier, you maintain a very busy touring schedule, and you're a songwriter. Are you able to write while you're on the road, or is that something that's best left to when you're back at home base?
Well, I do. I write all the time. I think, you know, if you're a writer, you write. You know, you also have to read. If you're a musician, you play, and you also listen. I do all those things. I write like a maniac on the road. However, in order to finish something, I found that peace and quiet is the best thing, and a lot of times I don't get that until I'm at home, right? So, yeah, usually I don't finish my songs until I get home.
There's a fantastic storytelling element to your work. Apart from obviously a good story, what for you is the key element to good storytelling in song?
Well, I certainly think it's a lot of reading myself. I think most writers would tell you that it comes from experience. And with that being said, I think that my writing is only getting better as I get older with the more experiences that I'm having.
Mm. If you had to describe your sound to the completely uninitiated, how would you put it in simple terms for them?
Well, it's a good question, you know. I'm one that's very, very quick to point out that genres are somewhat insignificant, you know, and it's important to look below the surface of a genre and not make a decision based on what the limitations we have in a handful of genres. But I would say it was an amalgamation of things, a combination of Western swing and traditional jazz, maybe some novelty string band music, some 20s pop, some country blues, and you know, maybe even some calypso. But it's just the fact that it's acoustic rooted music with horns, electric guitars. You never know what will be in some of my recordings, so drums, piano. But just storytelling, swing and storytelling music with a lot of melody.
Covers it nicely. You really go all out in presentation, both in sound and the look. You take on the persona and look, I guess, of an old-time band. Is there something of a statement in there expressing a distaste for the way music is currently sounding and presented?
Oh, of the way that I dress, it's really just a matter of the way I choose to express myself, you know. I think, like the music, I have something to say in that, but I also have something to say in the way I dress. That's just kind of my personality. I'm an eccentric person, expressive person, perhaps borderline eccentric. But to put it more, I guess, how should I say, maybe more in the context that, like in a grounded way, that I feel that it's not necessarily something I have to try too hard to do. You know, I just like quality in all things, you know, and I do find a lack of quality in a lot of things that are made and available on the market today. I do find that music is like that, but also clothes, you know. The quality of the materials, and a lot of things are now made in sweatshops in China. I think it's important to, you know, to remember that, you know, kids these days have no idea what it means to say made in America. I definitely take a lot of pride in things that are made here, and I notice a lot of quality in things that were made here. And clothes are no exception.
Being able to release your music through means that are not connected to major corporation companies, that more independently, is that giving you the freedom to make the records that you want to make rather than having a label hanging over you looking for more commercially viable music?
Well, I don't, you know, it's a tough, whenever you bring record labels into it, John, you know, I'm not going to speak for a record label, you know, and I will speak for myself and say I don't think I'm going to be putting any, like, big commercially acceptable music out there anytime soon. I mean, my manager may smack me in the head right now, but, you know, I'm just going to keep doing what I want to do. I mean, and what I mean to say is that the record labels aren't exactly knocking down the door to get to me. I make a sort of a niche music stuff that's very, very different and outside the mainstream. So, you know, my options are independent record labels that are eccentric as much as I am. And so that is what gives me the freedom to do what I want to do. It's just me being myself.
Sure. Having said that, how did the connection with Jack White come about, which saw you eventually on his label?
Yeah, well, I started working with Jack in 2011. And let's see, he heard one of my songs on WSM 650 AM out of Nashville, Tennessee, home of the Grand Ole Opry, and liked the sound and called me up and wanted to know if I wanted to do a single on Third Man Records. You know, he puts out a lot of those singles underneath the Blue series. And of course, I jumped to it, and we've had a musical relationship ever since. You know, worked with him on a number of projects since then. So when it came time for releasing a new album, he was a perfect fit.
When recording in the studio, do you try to minimise the use of modern production technology to maintain that old time sound?
You know, it really, when it comes to old time sound, I really just look at it as what's common sense, what sounds the best.
Mm-hmm.
So when it comes to sounding the best, it's not necessarily always using old time techniques. I mean, there's just some things that sound better with older things. Again, quality is sometimes better in older things. It's important to realize that, but there's also a certain amount of efficiency that allows the I guess the recording process to unfold a little bit quicker. Like for instance, I like to record on tape, but I like to mix and master digitally because it's just so much easier. And then you don't have to back it out on tape, and so that right there is a mixture between the new and the old. That's kind of what I've been doing for the most part.
There was a bit of a fuller sound on your most recent album, some extra instrumentation. Is that a direction you'd like to continue with in the future?
Yes, sir. Yes, absolutely. That's with the other albums, they were sort of a culmination point, and I was done with that sort of part of my songwriting, and I was just moving on. But I had to play on the record, tour on the record, But with this next one, it was a culmination point and also a stepping stone at the same time.
Yeah.
Definitely something. The record that I'm actually proud of, and moving into a more a bigger ensemble, allowing to accentuate the melodies, a little bit more interplay, a lot more textures and things like that. Absolutely. I mean, the next album is going to be bigger than ever. I'm doing what's called an American mixtape.
Ah.
That's what I'm calling it. And I'm going to record a double LP, therefore 4 sides. It'll also be a double CD. But each side will be a different city, a different band, a different studio, a different producer, a different engineer, all my songs.
Wow.
So not only showcasing all those things, but hopefully, there's some different things in my songwriting that perhaps people haven't heard before.
Fantastic. Now, I assume on your upcoming trip to Australia, you're bringing the full band with you?
Yeah, John. Yeah, always do. Yeah, always got the band. I just went to Holland and did a big TV show over there, and I went solo, and that was a kind of a cool experience for me because it took me back to my my early days when I was playing solo, and that was kind of cool. But yeah, I always had the band with me.
Fantastic. Can you tell us the background of some of the guys in the band?
Sure thing. I first started playing with my bass player, Joey Green, and then when I started playing with some of the other guys, Ryan Koenig on drums and harmonica and washboard, and Adam Hoskins on lead guitar and electric guitar and slide guitar, I moved back to the Midwest. I moved to St. Louis. This was about 5 or 6 years ago. 6 years ago. And so we played together for about 4 years. And then now for a little over a year, we started playing. I brought on a horn section. TJ Moeller on cornet and trombone, and Chloe Fioranzo on clarinet and saxophone. Now, the three guys I mentioned first are born and raised in St. Louis. My trumpet player, cornetist, he's from England, and my clarinetist is from Los Angeles. But they all live in St. Louis now, just like myself.
Has it been difficult over the years to find like-minded musicians to work with?
You better believe it. Yeah, you better believe it. It's not even just finding the right people that you want to that play the music, but it's finding the right people you want to spend time on the road with. Yep. And then 3, the hardest thing is finding people that actually want to come on the road, that fit all 3 of the criteria. Somebody who's applicable, somebody you like, and somebody who wants to come on the road.
Yeah, they're all
that's just a tough, because these cats down in New Orleans, in Chicago, New York, Los Angeles, where a lot of the, even just say traditional jazz musicians, same thing with Austin, in Nashville, a lot of country and Western musicians, some of the best in the world. I mean, where the industry is really set up for them they can stay there and play gigs every day, they can busk, they can, of course, work a lot in recording sessions, right? So getting them to come on the road can sometimes be a difficult thing. It takes a whole different kind of breed.
Mm-hmm. Now, you're playing club dates and festivals while you're down here. Do you find festivals a great way to introduce yourself to audiences that may not have found you otherwise?
You know it. Absolutely. Shoot. I mean, of course, you have a great experience at them. You're getting exposed to a lot of different music that you perhaps never would have heard of or never got to see. But especially from the reputation I've heard of Australian festivals, you'll hear music from all over the world, and that's a great thing. Mm-hmm. But yeah, as far as exposing your music to people, festivals are definitely the best way to do it.
Tremendous. And just before I let you go, Pokey, your plans after you leave Australia, what's on your books for the rest of the year?
Well, the rest of the year, I'm ending up that tour of New Zealand, and I'm taking a few days to hopefully get down to the South Island of New Zealand and bum around for a few days. And then we come home, I'm going to start recording this big recording project I have. Start to work on that. And then festival season in the States will kind of be in full swing, and we'll be doing that and some European festival touring all the way through to about September. And then I'm doing a package tour in September where I got a few bands opening up for me every night. We're going around the Midwest and playing theaters and clubs. And then in October, I'll do like a 3-week tour in Europe, where we have fun and do really well. And a lot of the recording kind of mixed in there, whatever free time I have. I'm going to be doing this recording project, and then shut her down in November and get ready for a busy 2015 with a new record, hopefully.
Fantastic. Sounds like a busy year ahead. Pokey, have a safe trip over. We're here ready and waiting for you. It's the Aussie crowds are just going to love your music, and we really look forward to seeing you.
Hey, thanks, John. I'm really looking forward to coming to the land down under. Thank you for taking the time to talk with me today, and don't hesitate to introduce yourself if we should cross paths out there.
Will do. Fantastic. Thanks a lot, Pokey.
Bye now.
All the best. Bye.